Welcome to the Phil Steele Plus Tour for September the 29th. Up for you today, I've got 5 selections, 3 quick hitters, 2 FCS games, and an NFL game. And as always, the purpose of this tour is not only to deliver you winners, but to show you all the different aspects of how to use Phil Steele Plus. All the information I use to handicap on a weekly basis is up here. When I'm on a radio show, this is the site I use, and everything is at my fingertips. Let's do a quick recap of last week. Last week, unfortunately, a 2-4 week for the selections. I'd tell you if we had a winning week. I'd tell you when we have a losing week. I like to say, hey, I'm going to work harder this week, but that's not possible. I give my maximum effort in this every week, just the way things work out sometimes. But over the last 10 weeks, the selections are now 31 and 22. That's dating back to last year. And as mentioned, I've got 5 selections complete with reasoning for you. So let's get right to it. We'll start with the average game of the week, average game grade game of the week. 2-1 this year. I want to point out, last week, the average game grade had SMU and TCU close. You know, TCU gained 51 yards on their last 2 possessions to get the yardage edge for the game. SMU actually had a yardage edge late in the fourth quarter and finished with a slim 44-yard edge, TCU did. SMU was -2 in turnovers and gave up a late touchdown after an onside kick recovery and lost the game last week. So a disappointing one for the average game grade, but we had 2 huge wins the first 2 weeks. So let's get one here. And for the first time, we're taking a favorite, but it's only a slight favorite. UMass is a 2-point favorite in the game against Arkansas State, and it's very easy. When you look at the average game grade has no starting point, so it doesn't matter what the team is. This could be Alabama. If Alabama put up these stats, their average game grade would be 87.7 if they played this schedule with these stats. There is no starting grade at all on a team. The beautiful thing is it not only takes into account the scores of the game, but also how the games were played. As an example, let's take a look at UMass. At Eastern Michigan, plus 93 yards. Last week at home against New Mexico, plus 167 yards. So even though they lost those 2 games, they were actually pretty good statistically. And if you look at how the 2 teams are for the season so far, UMass is playing at an 87.7 AGG, and Arkansas State is at a 78. Now you factor in the home edge for UMass. Let's go ahead and give them 3-point home edge here. That'd be 90.7. So that is 12.7 for UMass. Actually, I only gave them a 2-point home edge, so 11.7 for UMass in this one. So your average game grade of the week, UMass is only laying 2. The average game grades say they're going to win by 11. We're going to take UMass -2 over Arkansas State. All right, let's go to the situational game of the week, which is now 1-1 on the year so far when we've had a situational game of the week. And for this one, we're going to put Vanderbilt on the right, and we're going to put Missouri on the left. Now, just 2 weeks ago, we won with an average game grade play on Middle Tennessee State over Missouri. Remember, Missouri barely pulled out the win, 23-19 at home, winning by 4, and the yards were very close in the game, 316 to 285. Now you look at Missouri. They've opened up 4-0 this year, and they have a huge game next week against LSU. Tell me they're not possibly looking ahead to being 5-0 and taking on LSU on deck. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt did get blown out by Kentucky last week, but look at the yards in that game. They only got outgained 365 to 328. Kentucky got a couple of defensive touchdowns in that game, and the first downs were actually Vanderbilt 20-19. Now you say, can Vanderbilt play with Missouri? And they come into this game with some confidence. If we take a look here, yeah, they lost the last 2 games, 37-28, but they were a huge dog there, and they lost 17-14 last year. Anytime you click on the opponent's name here, you get the last 26 years' results at your fingertips. Take a look over here, how the home team is done. Now, how this is coded, if this says win, that means the home team has won straight up. If it's green, that means the home team covered. So as you can tell, the home team is 1, 2, 3, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-2 straight up. I sort of ignore the fact it's 5-4 ATS because if they win straight up, they're going to cover. Vanderbilt's a 14-point dog. So 7-2 straight up for the home team in this series. And if you look at the last 2 years closely, anytime you click on the box score right here, this brings up the box score of the game. If we take a look at this Vanderbilt game last year, Vanderbilt's down by 3 at Missouri, and they've got the ball 4th and 1 at the Missouri 44. They've assumed they were going to get the first down and keep going, possibly even win the game. They got stuffed on a run up the middle, and Missouri hung on to win. But they played them within 3 last year. And the last time here, if we go back to 2021, once again, click on the box score. And these box scores are courtesy of collegepressbox.com. I'd like to thank Ted Ganji for that. Appreciates him letting us put these box scores up on our website. But I go through that box score of every single game. It not only gives you the summary up here, the scoring summary, it gives you the complete stats, gives you the player stats, gives you the tackles for the defense, gives you the drives for the game, and then it gives you the starters for the game, and then you could take it through, once again, play-by-play of every game. I do go through the play-by-play of every game. On Sunday, I'm not watching the NFL games. I'm actually going through the play-by-play of every college game. But if we go back and take a look here, it was 30-28 Missouri the last time here, and then Missouri took over at 3:11 left. They got a 73-yard run by Batty, and that allowed them to win the game by 9 points. But it was a closer game probably than the final score would indicate. Only a 9-point win for Missouri, and that came on a big run by Tyler Batty, who, of course, is not there anymore. So Vanderbilt has confidence that they can play with Missouri. I like that. Missouri's got a huge game against LSU on deck. Another thing I like is if you take a look at the rankings, and we'll go back over the last 40 years, Missouri comes in ranked. Now, this shows you whether they're ranked or not. I'll move it over here a little bit so you can see it. Not ranked. Last time Missouri was ranked was 2019. I have found that teams who have not been ranked for like 3, 4, 5 years or 10 years or more, the first time they're ranked, it's a distraction. A lot of these kids have never been ranked. Everybody's patting them on the back at school. I've been using that angle for a lot of years. I'll have a number on that for you later in the season. I'll come up with an exact number. But it seems like when teams are ranked for the first time in a long time, they lose that next game because it's uncharted territory for them. So you got the home team is strong in this one. You've got Vandy 4-1 against the spread the last 5. I've played Missouri tough each of the last 2. And the final thing is something we pointed out in the magazine. Missouri's lost their last 8 SEC road openers. So the first SEC road game they lost here. Once again, on these 40, this takes you back to 1976, and we're getting these updated as well in the bold, unbold, like these are. But if it's bold, that means the team won outright. If it says W or L over here, that means they covered against the spread. So win against the spread or loss against the spread here. Here's your halftime stats on every game, and that takes you all the way back here to 2004. We started putting in the halftime stats. They didn't have totals on games back here in 1997, 98. Once they started putting totals in, we captured them. So you've got totals on every game at your fingertips all the way back the last 46 years. But bold means they won the game. So lost their first SEC game on the road, lost their first SEC game on the road, lost their first SEC game on the road. Here it was up here to Alabama. That's 3. Here's 4 to Vanderbilt. Last time they opened up the season at Vanderbilt, -21, lost outright. At South Carolina, lost outright. At Kentucky, lost outright. At LSU, lost outright. At Kentucky, lost outright. And here is the last time they won an SEC road opener, 2014. They won the game by 1 point. So they struggle on road openers. There's a lot going for us here. It's our situational game of the week. And by the way, if you go to the new thing I've put up here on philsteele.com, it actually shows you we go through the schedules, situational best bets. Look at how the situational best bets are doing so far this year. 22-11. The best bets are the ones in green. And up here where the games have been played already, if it's black, that means they covered. If it's red, that means they did not cover the game. And also under situational, if it is a positive number that favors the home team, if it is a negative number that says play the visitor. So keep that in mind. If you see the green over here, and if it's a positive number that says play the home team, if it's a negative number that says play the visitor, like here, it said play the visitor for Sam Houston last week, did not win, but that's part of a 22-11 best bet record for the situational play so far. And, we could dive into this a little further. And to get to here, by the way, you just go to the Phil Steele Plus menu, like this, and you go on schedule with power ratings forecasts. And when you go there, just click right here. Click to download Phil Steele's lines. and that takes you through it. So keep that in mind. But this thing has got everything going for it. It's a situational play, the situational best bets, 22-11 on philsteele.com. Check them out this week. And to top it all off, let's take it how Missouri does as an away favorite. And this right here, you can get the last 10 years straight up in ATS results. Now we have logs up here, right here. This box is in the magazine. These boxes are not in the magazine, and they are awesome. How they do is a conference favorite by 3 or less, single digit, double digit, 20 or more the last 10 years. I'll delve into this a little bit more, but if we look at how Missouri is done as an away favorite, they are 0-2, 1-2, 1-6, 2-8 against the spread as an away favorite the last 5 years. This is their first true road game of the year. So add it all up, we got a very nice situational play. I like Vanderbilt plus 14 over Missouri as your situational game of the week. Now let's take a look at the misleading final game of the week. And this one, what we're going to take a look at here is a team coming off a misleading final. And it was a brutal beat for my computer last week as it had Louisiana minus the points over Buffalo. And let's go take a look. And I bring this one up this week because it's not only a misleading 1, it's actually a misleading 2 for Louisiana. Now, I've got nothing against Minnesota. Minnesota, in fact, blew a big lead last week and lost. But when you look at Louisiana, take a look at them a little bit closer. They're playing Buffalo last week. Look at this yardage edge at the half, 230-56. And if we go through the play-by-play of that game, they're only leading 10-0 at the half. I believe right before the half they blew a scoring opportunity here. As I recall. Yeah, Louisiana's got a 1st and 10, and they're intercepted in the end zone for a touchback. And so it could have been 17-0, probably should have been 17-0, but that's irrelevant. Louisiana was laying like 7.5, 8 points against, they weren't laying a lot. Let me get the exact spread. They were laying 9 points last week against Buffalo. Now, we'll come up here and take a look because it's easier, just quicker to look at the scores of the game. Pop up here, and we see that Louisiana led this thing 31-7, 38-21, and in fact, it's 45-24, 5 minutes to go in the game. Buffalo comes down and gets a touchdown, recovers the onside kick, and gets another touchdown with 2 minutes left, and only lose by 7. A game Louisiana led huge, 31-7, 45-24, somehow don't cover. And look at the previous week against UAB, 41-21, appears fairly close. But look at this one. It was 41-3 with 5 minutes to go. So Louisiana gives up yards and points in the final 5 minutes of the game, went up big. But they're an underdog here. They're an 11-point underdog to Minnesota, so we don't have to worry about the 3rd and 4th stringers giving up yards and points late in the game. Other than that, Louisiana's been playing really good ball. And we also have individual player stats. This is huge. Last year, if you look at the individual player stats, they were a different team once Ben Woolridge took over at quarterback. And then Woolridge got hurt these final 3 games of the season, and they struggled down the stretch. They lost the game against Houston. They lost the game against Florida State. Of course, playing those games, those teams is tough, but they were a better team last year with Woolridge. But this year, Woolridge was questionable coming into the year. It was a big relief, I think, when Woolridge was the starter, but he was only hitting 56% on the season, and the offense wasn't as dynamic. Maybe he's not 100%. Maybe he's not the same dynamic quarterback he was. Now, Zeon Chris, just to give you a little explanation here, took all the snaps in spring practice. Their top 2 QBs, Woolridge and Fields, were both out with injury. So Chris, a very fast runner, and did very well in the spring, took all the number 1 reps, and Woolridge got injured here. So against UAB, they put in Chris, and their offense got a lot more explosive. All of a sudden, you had a mobile quarterback who is 100%. And if you look at his stats, I mean, he had 14-20, 22-29 passing. Chris has run for 103 and 70 yards. Their offense is a lot more explosive with Chris at quarterback right now. He's hitting 73%, and he's a dangerous runner. So we got that going for us. We got the fact we're not going to put our 4th and 5th stringers in and allow the 21 points that we've been allowing in the final 5 minutes of the game the last 2 weeks. And, Minnesota's got a pretty big game on deck against Michigan. So add it all up. We're going to take Louisiana plus 11. The other thing up right now on the Phil Steele Plus menu, then this menu's loaded with stuff. You should punch into all this stuff during the week because it's all up there. Who's got the best pass efficiency defense? Hey, Iowa State. That's interesting because I'm going to talk about Iowa State in a minute, but keep that one in mind. Iowa State's leading the nation in pass efficiency. They're taking on Oklahoma this week. Indiana's leading the nation in pass, or number 2 in pass efficiency. Remember, they shut down Ohio State. Now they're taking on Maryland this week. So that's a pretty good chart to have, your pass efficiency. Now, this doesn't say just your pass efficiency rating. It takes into account who you played. In other words, Indiana played Ohio State. Look at their opponent, 14.13. Iowa State's played a pretty tough schedule here. If you're taking on option offenses, you might have an 11.74 ratio down here. So do look at the pass efficiency. Look at all these things that are up on the Phil Steele Plus menu. But the one I want to touch on here is my final factor I wanted to point out, and it is the special teams. Now, Todd updates these every week, and they're updated 9/26. We've got a Louisiana team that's number 8 in special teams. That's nice. We got Minnesota here that's number 52 in special teams. So we even have the special teams edge. Just thought I'd throw that out at you. We're going to take Louisiana plus 11 over Minnesota as your misleading final. Trying to go a little slower this week, guys, because remember last week I was on the Tennessee game, and then I got distracted. I went on the team pages like this, and I wanted to click on UTSA for the opponent for Tennessee under the American, and I clicked on UAB by mistake. When I clicked on UAB, I said, I want to talk about this misleading final against Louisiana. I sort of got off track last week. The play was Tennessee over UTSA. You knew that, and I posted that on the YouTube site after it, but I'm trying to go a little slower so I don't make that type of mistake again. Sorry about that. Let's take a look at this West Virginia TCU game. And, we did lose going against TCU last week, but we also won going with West Virginia last week against Texas Tech is the best bet in my Inside the Press Box newsletter. And it was a nice win for West Virginia. An underdog, won outright, led the entire game, never trailed, led 13-3 at the half and went on to a 20-13 win. I have been impressed. When I talked to Neil Brown after the spring practice was over this year, he was impressed with the offensive line and the run game, and that is what they have. They've got a solid offensive line and run game. They're averaging 4.2 yards per carry. They can shrink the clock. They can take a fast-paced opponent like TCU out of their game plan, so I like that. I also like the fact if you take a look at how these two have played, we're going to look at West Virginia TCU. Let's take a look at the history. We see that West Virginia is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1 against the spread. And really, guys, should be 7-0. Last year, I used West Virginia against TCU. And let's go take a look at the box score of that game and find one of those agonizing losses. West Virginia was plus 8, 9 in the game. They're at home. They're down by 3. And TCU's running out the clock. So we go to the fourth quarter. TCU running out the clock in the fourth quarter. You guys remember this game. 4th and 1 to West Virginia 29. Figure they're going to run the ball. Guess what? Throws a pass to the right sideline to Williams. Catches the ball at the 2. Bowls his way into the end zone. TCU wins by 10. That was the one spread loss for West Virginia. A 4th and 1, 26-yard touchdown pass with practically no time left on the clock. Now, the average game grades likes TCU by 6.3. This is what I call the checkmark game. Now, the checkmark game did lose last week. But first of all, we've got the series history going for us. Check. The AGG says West Virginia is playing at a 103.1. And TCU's playing at a 105.9. Add in the home field edge. That's TCU by 7.9. West Virginia's getting 14.5 points. Check. Now we'll take a look at the schedule. The schedule strength goes to West Virginia, number 37 and number 91. Once again, if you go here to the Phil Steele Plus menu, we do have schedule strength up and available for you. Let's just click on that for a second. Schedule strength. Where's schedule strength? There's strength of schedule. And we see West Virginia is should be in the 30s here, 38, and TCU is down here, 94. So you have the tougher strength of schedule. You've got the AGG. You got the series history. My plus-minus ratings have TCU by 6.3, and my computer has TCU by 11. It matches all the check marks. We're taking West Virginia plus the 14.5 over TCU as your checkmark game of the week. All right, let's go back to the team pages. We're going to take a look at Washington against Arizona. Once again, got an NFL game for you up today, so that's pretty exciting. Our first NFL game of the season. Washington's on the road against Arizona this week, and we'll put those two teams up here. One thing, this is my streak of the week game, and it's just Washington. They're covering. Last year, you look at their final 3 games, they covered against Colorado, they covered against Washington State, they covered against Texas. Did they cover against Oregon last year on the road? Yeah, they did. They were an underdog on the road and won. So that's 4 straight covers right there, and most of them impressively. Big-time covers. Same thing this year. The Tulsa game is actually a push, but cover, and not just covering impressively. Let's go take a closer look at that game against Cal. They led 45-12 at the half. Look at this. It was 52-12 in the third quarter, guys. 59-25. Cal got 3 late touchdowns on this one to make it 59-32. So Washington's just simply blowing opponents out. The AGG is there. Washington is number 1 in my average game grade. And if you go to my, once again, go to the Phil Steele Plus menu. You want the average game grades for the teams all there. Here it is, your average game grade rank. Washington's 1, Oklahoma's 2, Oregon 3. Once again, no starting point. It only takes into account who your opponent is and what you've done against them. You've got Ohio State, LSU. Yes, LSU is ahead of Florida State because you played 4 games. So in the Florida State-LSU game, Florida State had the better grade, but they got outgained. If you go back and look at Florida State right now, there are 27 teams that are unbeaten. And of the 27 teams, the team that has the worst YPG is actually Florida State, believe it or not. And that's because they got outgained by Boston College by 117 yards. They got outgained by Clemson. Never led a single play in regulation. Clemson missed a game-winning field goal, gave up a fumble return touchdown, or Clemson beats them. They had a 429, 311-yard edge. So, yes, they played a great game against LSU, but remember, they were outgained by LSU at the half, 293-213, and only had a 34-yard edge in the game. It was a great fourth quarter against LSU. So they played a tremendous fourth quarter against LSU, but the rest of their season hasn't been in that same balance. That's why LSU is rated ahead of them. So it's not like the polls where you say, hey, this team beat that team. How can they be rated lower? The AGG is blind to all that, who beat who. It just takes a look at how you're playing on the season, and that's why Florida State is there. But anyway, Washington, number 1 in my AGG. And you might ask, hey, where's Georgia? Georgia is down here, mostly because they've been going through the motions against weaker opponents. But it does not have a starting grade on Georgia. I have Georgia number 1 in the country. I think they will be number 1 in the country for the rest of the season. They should be favored in the rest of their games. And you'll see them as the competition gets stronger, start moving up, and especially as they start having better games. Washington also has the special teams advantage in this game. Let's go to our special teams chart and take a look at that. Special teams, we got Washington is playing Arizona. I think Washington is here at number 61. Arizona is struggling. They're number 111 on special teams. So we got the special teams. We got the fact that Arizona is banged up. DeLora got injured last week. He's questionable for the game. They had numerous injuries, actually, on Arizona, and you're laying less than 3 touchdowns here. So I add it all up, but you can take a look under the individual player stats. You see DeLora came out of the game. Noah Fafita, who, by the way, Coach Fish has great confidence in. When you look at Fafita, he did hit 4-4 passing last week, but you just got to like Washington against a banged-up Arizona, and you just got to play on Washington until they actually don't cover the spread. They've just been that dominant. They're number 1 in my AGG. All right, let's get to some quick hitters for this week. And speaking of dominant and teams that get blown out, we're going to put Colorado on the right. We're going to put USC on the left. Now, this situation is not as good as last week. I mean, last week Oregon was at home. Oregon has a better defense, and Oregon just put it to Colorado. I do want to point out these halftimes. They are vital. While I'm watching the games on Saturday, I track every single halftime, all the stats, and look at this. At the half, Colorado was outgained 378-21. Colorado had 21 first downs at the half. And this could be a red-green game like last week. Look at Colorado's rush offense. As I pointed out in our red-green game last week, Colorado cannot run the ball. 56 yards per game rush, 1.9 yards per carry. They've given up 23 sacks. That sack total only got worse with 7. They're up to 13.5%. They cannot stop the run. They're allowing 207 yards per game rush, 5.3. USC can run the ball, 6.9 yards per carry. USC's hitting 72% completions. They're giving up 68% completions. You got a lot of good things going. Can USC get after the quarterback? Yes. 16 sacks, 8 last week, 11.7%. You got green, you got red, you got USC, you got a Colorado team that was beaten 378-21 yards at the half last week. Oregon put it away in the second half. And the last time USC, or one time here, look at the Stanford game, 49-3 at the half. USC led that. We're going to go with USC minus 21.5. A red-green game. USC also has a large special teams edge here. Number 2 against number 95. I'm not going to take your time up going back, but you can use that special teams chart all season long. The next one, I found this one, and I was just playing around looking for some numbers and the angles. And I fell in love with this game, guys, so it became a quick hitter. And we're going to put Iowa State in the left and Oklahoma on the right. Now, first of all, when you look at Oklahoma, I remember last year they got off to that great start, like they did this year. And then once they got to Big 12 play, they struggled. What was their record in Big 12 play last year? Let's go take a look here. Oop, not there. Let's go take a look at our last 10 years' results. Conference play last year, 3-6 against the spread. So not a wonderful team against the spread. But when you go to Iowa, I can find a lot of numbers that are very attractive over here. First of all, how does Iowa do as a conference away dog? Well, here we got 1-1, 1-2, 1-2-1, 2-2-1, 4-3-1, 7-4-1, 9-5-1 as a conference away dog. As a how about as a double-digit conference dog? 2-1, 5-2 the last 3 years as a double-digit conference dog. And oh no, that's favorite. Sorry, here is your dog. 1-1, 2-1, 4-1, 5-1, 9-2 against the spread as a double-digit conference dog. And that figures because Iowa State likes to slow the game down. So when they're getting a huge amount of points, they make it close. 9-2 is a double-digit conference dog. Use this chart when you want to look stuff up. Don't just look at home favorite, away favorite. How about conference? How about conference dog? How about conference double-digit dog? How about 20 or more? Well, they are 1-0, 3-0. The last 3 times they've been a 20-plus favorite or 20-plus dog in conference play, and that dates back the last 8 years. They are 3-0 against the spread. So a lot to like there. What we just discovered, Iowa State number 1 in my pass efficiency defense chart. I like that. And I think when you look at this series, Iowa State's played them pretty tough on a yearly basis. Lost by 14, lost by 7, won by 7, lost by 6, lost by 1, lost by 10, won by 7. 12. When's the last time Oklahoma won by 20? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's been 9 years since Oklahoma beat Iowa State by more than 2 touchdowns. So I like Iowa State plus the 20 over Oklahoma as a quick hitter. Another quick hitter we're going to take a look at is Oregon against Stanford. Now, you knew how I feel about Oregon and Stanford coming into the year. I had Oregon number 2 in the Pac-12, and they are right now number 3 in my AGG. I had Stanford at the bottom. They're a rebuilding team. The last time Stanford played a really good team was USC, 49-3 at the half. And Oregon's got a better defense. Oregon's holding opponents to 95 yards per game below their season average. They're potent offensively. Bo Nix is trying for a Heisman. And do you think there's going to be a lot of Stanford fans here after they lost to Sacramento State and opened up the season 1-3? You got to think Oregon may travel fairly good for this game. And when you look at Stanford, how do they do at home? Are they a tough home team? Well, home favorite, home away. They're 1-5, 2-9, 2-10, and they're 1-1 this year. So 3-11 against the spread at home. Stanford, like I said, USC led big. And, of course, last week, Oregon had a 378 to 21-yard edge at the half, and then sort of put it away in the second half. But I like Oregon, minus 27 on the road. And the big thing here, they got a bye next week, so they don't have to worry about next week's opponent yet. They play Washington in 2 weeks. They got to get Bo Nix some Heisman numbers. Let's go with Oregon, minus 27. Well, my boy Chris delivered big time last week on the FCS, didn't he? Let's go to those FCS pages. And by the way, if you haven't got the FCS magazine, what are you waiting for? I think it's got 2 full pages on every team. And you learn so much about each and every team in the FCS. But last week, he actually put out a double play. Remember that? It was on West Carolina. And that's the first game we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about this West Carolina team. I believe West Carolina is at home against the Citadel. So let's put West Carolina over here. And there they are. No, they're at the Citadel. All right, so we'll put the Citadel over here. The Citadel, and we're going to put West Carolina over here. Now, remember what I told you last week about West Carolina, this Kerwin Bell thing. Kerwin Bell took over here, rebuilt the team. They went 4-1 down the stretch. Last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 5. And this year, they're off to a nice 3-1 start. Last week, the selection, the double play, was Western Carolina minus 10. Now, one thing I want to point out, these FCS lines, they could move up to 7 points. when Chris does a selection on these games, he's anticipating that the line could move 7 points. So even if it's 7 points worse than the number I give you right now, he still likes it. So keep that in mind. And last week, they just buried Charleston Southern. 77-21 is a 10-point favorite. I'll take that any day of the week. Now, naturally, the AGG weighs in heavy here. Western Carolina's a 21-point favorite on the road. And what Chris says about this game, this is a revenge game. Last year, they actually lost to the Citadel 34-21. But here's the difference. Last year, the Citadel, look at this, they gave up 312 yards rushing to the Citadel. Citadel was an option team. They have a brand new head coach this year. You'd know that if you had the FCS magazine. You know that they have a brand new head coach that says, you know what, I'm not using the option anymore. We're going to a pass attack. Now, Georgia Southern shocked me last year when they switched from an option offense to a pass attack and had success. I said in the magazine, in the history of the magazine, I've seen nothing but struggles when teams do that. Well, guess what? The Citadel is that struggle. And this is a red-green type of game. Look at all the red over here. Is the Citadel struggling with their switch from the option to a pass offense? You betcha. 0, 7, 3, and 10 points. And they're averaging 226 yards per game offense, completing 54% on the year. And that run game, which used to be really good, look at all that green, that run game is now averaging 3.7 yards per carry. You look at Western Carolina, as I mentioned, they're a team that's on the rise. Look at their offense. They're averaging 5.1 yards per carry. They're going against a defense. Citadel is a rebuilt team this year, and not only changing things up on the offense, but rebuilt on both sides of the ball. Look at this. They're giving up 5.6 yards per carry and 76%. So not only can't they stop the run, they can't stop the pass. Kerwin Bell loves to roll it up. 77 points last week, and they are averaging 518 yards per game, plus 150 yards per game above their opponents. The AGG says Western Carolina by 42. They are laying 21. It's a 3-touchdown game. It's a red-green game. We're going to go with West Carolina, who delivered for us last week, over the Citadel. The other one, maybe the top play of the games this week, we're looking at Harvard against Holy Cross. And let's see who's at home. Holy Cross is at home. Let's go put them on the right, and we're going to put Harvard on the left. So we line them up this way. Couple things. Harvard was a very good team last year. They were one of the top teams in the Ivy League. However, this year, Chris pointed out in the magazine, he wrote the Harvard write-up, they only bring back 8 starters this year. They lost the Ivy League's number 1 rusher. That would have been Alan Bourquette, who rushed for 1,182 yards. They lost both quarterbacks from last year. They lost their top wide receiver from last year in Wimberly, and they lost 11 of their top 16 tacklers. So they're not the same team. Now, they got a win over St. Thomas, 45-13. Keep in mind, St. Thomas is a non-scholarship team. So they only had a 35-yard edge against a non-scholarship team in the opening game. The score looks great, but this doesn't. They got out first down 21-14. They benefited from +3 in turnovers. Now, last week, and by the way, let me go to the logs for the FCS. Once again, go to your Phil Steele Plus menu. And when you go to the Phil Steele Plus menu, it's got the college ATS logs here. Here are the FCS logs, and they are updated. So let's take a look at Harvard last week. And by the way, the college FCS magazine has the logs for the last 5 years. I think Phil Steele Plus does as well. Yeah, it does. I'll show you that in a minute. But they were a 15.5-point favorite over Brown. They only won by 3. So that's a nice little point to make. Yes, go to the team pages, go to the FCS, and we go to Harvard, and you can click on here. Here are your spreads for the last 6 years, and then you've got the 7th year logs up there. So the last 7 years logs updated spread-wise. So what we see is that Harvard is not as good as last year's team. They've actually not been as good as this 2-0 record. And meanwhile, when you look at Holy Cross is a team that's ranked number 5 in the FCS. They're 4-0 straight up. Go click on the logs like I just showed you. You'll find out they're 3-0-1 against the spread. Now, the best team in the Ivy League this year is probably Yale. Yale was the champ last year. Yale is the preseason favorite this year. They beat Yale by 25 points on the road, and now they get Harvard at home -10. This is a very good Holy Cross team that almost beat Boston College on the road, but they only lost that game by 3. They've got their quarterback back in Sluka. He's hitting 68% with a 10-1 ratio. They've got 2 running backs averaging over 5 yards per carry. They've got the defense is okay. They're average, but their offense is not overwhelming. Add it all up, we are going to take Holy Cross -10 over Harvard. Now, I told you we got NFL stuff up on the site, so let's go ahead and give you an NFL one. And we could click on the NFL team pages here, and we'll put the Browns on the right, and we will put Baltimore on the left because the Browns are at home. Now, in this game, the Browns are a 3-point home favorite, but I was looking at this game statistically. Wow. I mean, it is something that just jumps out at you. The Browns defense, and I'll go back to last year. I think it was mid-season. The San Francisco 49ers, you looked at their defense and you said, wow, that's one of the best defenses in the NFL. Then they went on that great spread streak, right? Well, this might be the time to jump on the Browns. Look at these amazing numbers. They are giving up 7 first downs per game. Is this the NFL? 7 first downs per game, 164 yards per game. They're holding opponents to 135 yards per game below their season average. And it's not like their offense isn't doing well. 371 yards per game. They're outgaining foes by 207 yards per game. They've got some amazing numbers this year. Now, Baltimore's not bad. They're 2-1, lost a close game last week, but their numbers are nowhere near. And the one thing I want to point out, let's go take a look at this chart. And it is updated for the NFL. Go to your NFL team pages, or not NFL team pages. Go to your Phil Steele Plus menu. And when you go to the Phil Steele Plus menu, go to your NFL information over here. Let's see what else we got for the FCS. All this is available for the FCS. But here's your NFL. And this one's interesting. It's your offense and defense, YPG versus opponent average. And you can start using that now because we're 3 games into the season. Miami's up there. You knew that. I'm surprised New England's up there, aren't you? Cleveland's up there, and San Francisco, and Detroit. So you think, okay, your best teams in the NFL are Philadelphia, Kansas City, Detroit, San Francisco, Miami, right? Cleveland and New England sneak in here and doing very well in this category. In fact, the Browns are number 3. If you look at Baltimore, they're down here at number 18 offensively, 13 defensively, 13 overall. Nothing special. The Browns should be more than a 3-point favorite here. We're going to take the Browns with that amazing defense minus the 3 at home. So we got NFL stuff. We got FCS stuff. We got FBS stuff. There's your free plays for the week. I hope you get on that Phil Steele Plus. It's only $99 for the whole year. Remember, when you sign up for my Inside the Press Box newsletter for the season, you get Phil Steele Plus for the year for free. So just go to philsteele.com and check that out. Hopefully it's a nice big winning week this week, and thanks for taking the Phil Steele Plus tour with me.